Hi, this is Kat Chancellor with Stamp Art Connection and stampartconnection.com. I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, and I would like to show you how to put this card together here. Now, this card was kind of came with this kit called Great Tidings, great stamps, and a set of dies. We're going to use some of the dies off of here, and if you watched my last video when I put together this card, you will remember that I cut out this arch, which is part of this die, and I said I was going to show you how to put together this card. So here we go. Let's go ahead and get started. So what you're going to need is, of course, the Great Tidings stamp set and the dies. The dies that we're going to be using are going to be, very simply, these city dies right here, and we may use an outline die for the gifts. So I'm just going to pull that out. So we're going to use that die, and we're going to use that die. The other dies we're going to use is, if you haven't already cut out this piece out of a piece of silver foil, you're going to need to cut that out. And what it's going to create is it's going to create a piece like this, and we're going to use that for our card right here. What I've done with this is I've put this silver foil, I've backed it with some adhesive, all-purpose adhesive sheets. So I'm going to put that down. I don't need that die, but you're going to need it if you haven't already used it. For this card here, we're going to need the diorama, layering diorama dies. And the dies that we're going to need for this set include, let me go ahead and pull them out. I believe we're going to need this die here. Okay, you can kind of see how I'm pulling them out. I have them numbered 1, 2, 3, because these outside dies line up, and then the 2 inside dies line up, and then the 2 inner inside dies line up. I've made little marks. These are there's 3 outside that line up, so I've made 1, 2, 3 little dots. This is the number 1 dot. Then for the next one, I want, let me just pull out those 2 inside dies. Now see, these nest nicely, and we're going to want, let me just line this up. We're going to want the very inner inside die. So it's going to be the number 1 from the outside, the number 1 from the outside, and the number 1 from the next inside. And then you have the inner. We're not using the inner. Okay, so I hope that kind of clears up how I have my diorama dies organized. Okay, so let's go ahead and put those aside there. Now those are the dies which you're going to need. Now for cardstock, our base card is simply going to be a piece of basic white cardstock, and I've already cut this piece. And let me go ahead and cut this other piece, basic white cardstock. We're going to cut this at 4 1/4 right there. And then we're going to score it at 5 1/2. And I have my base card. Now, the layering piece for this card right here is going to be Knight of Navy, and we want to layer that at 5 1/4 by 4. And then I want this at 4 by 5 1/4. For this card, I'm going to need a piece of Night of Navy, which is going to be one of my layers. And I want that layer again to be 4, and it is, by 5 1/4. I'm going to go ahead. Here's my cutting blade. Let's go ahead and whip that down. The top layer here is going to be Misty Moonlight. Now, so there are our layers for this card. Now, this background layer here is black. Now, what I'm going to use, instead of just basic black glimmer paper, and we're going to cut that 3 3/4, because I mean, I don't need much, and I'm making some other cards with this. I need about 3 by 4. So let's go ahead and cut this at 4. Yeah, let's just cut that by 4 by 4. And this is going to be our background piece. Wait, now let me show you how beautiful this turned out. This is a card I made last week. Look how beautiful this turned out. I used just basic black paper, and then here I used the glimmer paper as the background. So this is part of, it's in the seasonal catalog right now, in our mini catalog, but it was meant for Halloween, but look what a beautiful background it makes for your Christmas cards. Now I'm going to need for, I'm saying a lot of I'm going to need. All right, so this is that piece, and then this is this piece. For our scene, I am using a piece of, and the scene is in both of these. I'm using a piece of this paper here, which you can use any kind of glimmer paper, but this paper came from the Bedazzling. It was part of the Specialty Designer Series paper that came out of Celebrations that I'm using. And I'm going to put some adhesive backing on this. So I'm just going to set that there. Now, for our city, which is this die right here, what we're going to use is, you can use some of the beautiful brushed metallic paper. And I have some pieces and parts here. This piece is copper, and it's already using the foam adhesive sheets that that Stampin' Up! Sells. And they're right here. It's basically a solid piece of foam that you apply to the back of your paper, and it pops your image up. So I'm going to use that for one, and use it for this one here, because this one is a little bit popped up. So I'm going to use that. And then for this one, again, I already have some of that adhesive backing on it. You can tell I've used it for another card, but I'm going to use that one because this one's flat against. So I'm going to use that piece to cut out my city right there. Now, you will need some silver embossing powder, because we're going to emboss the silver star, which is a stamp that comes with the piece. And you're going to need an embellishment. You're going to need a very pretty rhinestone, because we're going to put a very pretty rhinestone in there. I'm using gold embossing powder here because I'm going to go ahead and gold emboss on a white cardstock the little gifts that are being presented by the three kings, because I think, this is the three kings are going towards the city of Bethlehem with the star of David guiding them. Okay, all right. You're going to need white embossing powder, because I have embossed Good Tidings of Great Joy and Wise Men Will Seek Them on our cards. So those are all the pieces and parts that you will need. Let's go ahead and get started. The easiest card to put together, so I'm going to begin with this card, is going to be the Good Tidings of Great Joy card. Now I'm going to use Night of Navy, and I'm going to need a scoreboard, because what I'm going to do, if you'll notice, I always like to kind of score my edges to kind of make my card look very neat. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm just scoring along the edges about 1/8 of an inch all the way around the edge of my card. And that is going to establish a very pretty, see how pretty that is? That's going to kind of create that very nice edge. I'm then going to take this piece, and this is going to be my arch, my arc. All right, so let's take this and bring in our sheet. And we're going to line this up right here. 1, 2, 3, 4. And it's going to be, we are going to cut this one, two. It's going to go cut like that. And I'm just drawing on this because I want to make sure okay, so there we go. That piece is cut, and then you can see when we cut out our dies, that's going to fit very nicely right on top, okay? So that is how you create that arch there. For this piece, we're going to grab a piece of the copper foil that I have here with one of the foam pads. I'm going to put this right here and make that through several times. Okay. And there it is. Now, while I have my mini cutter out, I'm just going to pull out my city. I'm going to go ahead and grab my gold, and I'm going to put my die. You see, I'm just putting my die right there. So now I have cut both of my metallic cities that have to go on my cards. So I can put this metallic paper aside. I'm bringing in this card because this is the card we're working on right now. And I have cut my hill, which is going to go right there. And then I have this piece that's going to go right there. So you kind of see how I have that set up. Okay, I'm going to grab my tool here. I'm going to make sure that I get all these little pieces out. I'm just going to pull out this piece. And I'm going to do the same thing, rolling over it to make sure that I got all the pieces out. So that worked nicely. Put my tool back. And I have these pieces done. I have this piece ready. And then I have this arch. Now, the next thing I want to do is I want to cut this arch, and you need kind of a long pair of scissors, or for the bottom, we could use this little cutter, because I just want to cut that. Just want to cut that, just line it up. And that cuts it. That cuts it perfectly. You can do the same thing to make sure the sides are perfectly cut. I don't really need much cut there, but I'm just going to kind of just trim a little bit to make sure that it's even all the way around. Okay, you can see how nice it's cutting it. Now the trick is this piece right here. And all you have to do is, I like to grab a big pair of scissors, and I'm just going to go ahead and I'm just going to kind of just trim. Just like that. So just start at the top and then just kind of turn it with your finger. And there you go. So that's pretty well trimmed. And now it's going to go right there. Now before I put this on here, what I want to do now is I want to get my Versamark, because you want to go ahead and make sure that you get your sentiments stamped neatly right there. You grab the Versamark. Okay, so that came out perfectly. So I'll just put this aside for now, because the next thing I'm going to have to stamp is that star. Okay, so now that we have that, remember here is our piece that fits perfectly inside. So now I'm going to pull the adhesive backing from the back of this silver foil. Now, what we want to do is we want to put our Star of David. So I'm going to grab my embossing buddy. I'm going to very lightly touch that. I'm going to grab my Versamark, and I have my silver embossing powder. And I want to put that right there. And then let me grab my little coffee filter. Put a little silver on here, because I want to make sure that I get that just perfectly centered. And you'll see why. See, and you can see why I wanted that perfectly centered right there on my card. And now I'm just going to dazzle that with a rather big rhinestone. I'm going to put a big one there. You can see how big that is. Okay. All right. So I have basically finished the front of this card. Now I can kind of wipe it down to make sure I get all of the embossing buddy off. But isn't that gorgeous? All right, so now I can put this on our card. And there's the front of that card. Isn't that beautiful? It's just lovely. I really just love that. Okay, so now we're going to set that card aside, and now we're going to bring in our next card. Now we've already cut this piece right here. So now what we have to do is we have to bring in our cardstock. Now, this is going to be our background right here. And then we're going to cut the blue, and then we're going to run the Misty Moonlight. So let's cut the blue, and I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to cut the blue. I think I'm going to cut it like that. Okay, so that piece is cut, and that piece is going to go. That piece is going to go like that. Okay, so we have this piece cut, right? So now we want to cut the piece that's on top of it. If you don't get this just right, it's going to look kind of you know, if you don't align this correctly. So I'm going to align it the way I want it. Okay, so now take these off. And there's my center that comes out. So now you can see how nicely that lines up, okay? But what we want to do, and this is going to go in the back of this, like that, and then this is going to go here. Okay, so I've got another piece of sparkly paper. Let's go ahead and grab some of this adhesive sheet and put that on sparkly paper like that, because I'm going to, there we go, we're going to line this up like this, and I'm going to put, this piece is going to come like that. So I've got that, and that and that. So let me cut this first. Okay, so I have my piece there. And lines up nicely like that. I'm going to place that like that, and I'm going to draw this line. It's going to come all the way down to here. So we're going to cut this. And I can use my eraser to get off any of my, and we'll just trim this a little bit more like that. Okay, so now that fits nicely there. See that? And then these will fit nicely right there. Like that. So let's go ahead and put this piece on the back of my white, and I'm going to use some tear tape. Okay, so now that is there. This is going to go right here. And then this is going to go, and I'm going to I think I'm going to flatten this out a little bit. And this is pretty much up to you how you want to do this. And then this piece is going to go like that. Now what I need here is a star. So now I'm going to grab my star and some Versamark. I'm going to stamp this star right here on my glitter paper. I'm going to remove this. I'm going to pour some of this embossing powder on this glitter paper. I'm going to make sure I get this star. And there's the star. Look at that. There's your star on your night sky. So now we can place that right there. We've got our star framed. And I'm going to go ahead, and both of these have adhesive backing on them. So the first thing I want to do is I want to go ahead and I want to place my city, grab my adhesive piece right here, pull it off, and then I want to position this wherever I want to position this. And I kind of like it like that. Okay, you see that? Now that I have that positioned, okay, now I'm going to grab my other piece, and this piece is going to go under like that, and I may have to trim this because I don't want it to show up under my blue. So let's go ahead and pull this piece off. And let's just kind of match. And you just kind of want to bring it up. I'm just kind of bringing it up to match these edges here. Then I'm going to put that in place. Now I have my scene, and I can use, flip this over, I'm going to use my tear tape to adhere this to my scene. Okay, so now I can put this piece, and I'm going to line that up. There's that piece. Now let's take this layer, and we're going to lay this layer. We're going to lay that layer right there. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to narrate what happened with the rest of the card. I made some bad choices here. I used the adhesive strips to put on my card and to adhere the front layer. Well, that was a good idea, except that the adhesive strips kind of caused a very uneven surface, and I really should have done the stamping before I adhered it, because you'll see that my my Versamark didn't go on evenly, and then when I tried to go ahead and emboss the letters, that it just ended up with some blanks. So then I tried to fix it with a Versamark pen, and it just kept getting worse and worse and worse. So I went ahead and I did that with the Versamark pen. You can still see the letters are a little thick. I tried to kind of get rid of some of the embossing powder. Went off. Again, it still looks really kind of bad. My E was wrong. I was trying to fix my E because it basically came out looking like S-E-C-K instead of S-E-E-K for seek. I tried to fix that, and I just ripped it off. There it is. You can see I ripped off the paper, and I'm trying to basically recover. There's my cutting board, my trimmer. I'm cutting another piece of Misty Moonlight, and I went ahead and I die cut another layer. That's what I'm doing right now. Off on the side is die cutting. You can see how awful it looks with all that the foam strips. So I ripped those off, and in ripping those off, I kind of have some areas that still have some adhesive tape. So I ripped that off, and then that piece that I just cut had Versamark on it. I'm trying to figure out how to get rid of that. So then I tried to put it into an embossing folder. There I am putting an embossing folder, thinking the embossing folder is going to help to get rid of that the Versamark ink spot that was on my paper. So I'm off trying to figure that piece out. And I'm going to come back and show you that it just really didn't work. I'm panicking right now because I did this late last night. So I'm trying to pull it together here. That didn't work. There it is. See? So now I'm going to have to do it again. So here I am back at my trimmer, cutting another piece of Misty Moonlight at 5 1/4 by 4. I'm going to grab my die again. I'm wondering if I should use the same die, if I should change the same die. Nope, I'm going to use the same die. I'm going to use the exact same process I showed you earlier for how to cut that. So I'm going to go ahead and cut that die. There it is. It looks perfect. So now I'm going to go ahead and stamp with Versamark my sentiment there in the corner, which is what I should have done to begin with, but I didn't do it. So it just goes to show that we all make mistakes, and sometimes you just have to tear your project apart. It's a little crooked, but again, I was a little flustered last night trying to put this together. And instead of using those silly strips, I just went ahead and used dimensionals. I thought I could get away with using those strips, and it probably was a good idea at the time if everything had worked out, but it didn't. So there I go. I've recovered, and there's my card. So I just wanted to kind of give you the play-by-play blow of how I recovered making that card. We'll continue. So there you have it. 2 wonderful cards put together using this wonderful die here from the Great Tidings, the layering diorama set. So some key things to remember when you're putting together this card. Stamp this first. Don't rely on trying to stamp and emboss it while it's already made. Do that first. Use some Post-its to make sure that you kind of hold your dies to align them so that they can come through. You can emboss silver embossing powder on this black glimmer paper. I think that's really the kind of the key items to remember when putting together this card. Thank you for letting me share and share some of the challenges. I hope that by showing you what I did, that I'll make it easier for you to put it together. It's a fun card. This is Kat Chancellor of Stamp Art Connection at stampartconnection.com. Happy stamping. what we're going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to remove this. And then I'm going to put a piece of paper, post it. Okay, so I put some adhesive sheeting on the back.